that incentives for donating in either situations of deceased people and living people, more than 2,000 for someone who's living, certainly, I do think very much that that would increase the supply. And that's what this is all about, increasing the supply so people can get off the list and the others can move up. And in fact, Virginia and I have added a new mission to our respective portfolios, which is trying to move forward the debate on offering incentives for organs. And this is a debate that's been around actually since the late 70s, but has gotten more and more momentum. I've spoken to a number of transplant surgeons, in fact, who were very much against it. And in general, the transplant community, as they call themselves, is skeptical of this kind of thing, of offering people money, incentives, some kind of compensation to give an organ. But increasingly, more are considering it. For example, I was at the World Transplant Congress this summer, and the president of the American Transplant Society suggested that we have to try some model pilot programs on this to offer it. It is against the law, and the 1984 National Organ Transplantation Act makes it illegal. It's a felony punishable by up to $50,000 or 5 years in jail to get or to receive an organ for what's called valuable consideration, which typically means money, but some kind of exchange, maybe a car. And I would like to see, I should say, there have been some proposals. In 2003, Senator Frist had proposed an amendment that would at least allow a pilot program for just what the kind of thing that the caller describes, and unfortunately it never came to pass, in large part because of the efforts of the National Kidney Foundation.
If you've just joined us, we're talking with two people who have a lot in common today. They didn't have probably over a couple years ago. Virginia Postrel, who is in Los Angeles this morning and writes for the Atlantic Monthly, among other publications, has given a kidney to Sally Sattel, who is in Denver this morning. They don't live in either one of those places, but they agreed to get up early and talk about this. Let's get a call in. We'll get Virginia involved in this. Asheville, North Carolina, you're on the air.
Good morning. I want to thank both of your guests for showing up. It's a great story you have. I'm a critical care nurse in a neurotrauma intensive care unit, and this is a topic that I deal with frequently. As a matter of fact, I had an organ donor patient just 2 days ago. Incidentally, and I've been doing this for many years now, and I've sort of been conducting ongoing data collection about the reasons that people and family members will decide to donate organs to others. And also, I have personal experience with this, as an 8-year-old niece of mine was killed in a traumatic accident and became an organ donor. So I have seen both sides of this, and the personal benefits to the donor family, as well the survivors of the donor's family, as well as recipients. With regard to the previous, this is kind of taking me off my point I wanted to make. With regard to the previous caller from Jackson, Wyoming, and with respect to Dr. Sattel, I have to say, I think that it is a very dangerous thing to think of giving financial incentives to prospective donors. I'm sure that it must seem desirable as a potential recipient, but the slippery slope argument is going to put organ donation in a very, very difficult position to justify in the eyes of the general public who do not understand this issue.
Chicago, let me ask you this question. You say you've been keeping kind of studying why people give up kidneys to someone else. Can you give us any, what your data show over the years?
Well, not so much with respect only to kidneys. And there again, I don't deal with living donors, as is the case with your two guests. Exclusively, I deal with patients that have been declared brain dead. And so there are various factors that I've been observing over the years that seem to be tipping points. I know it sounds probably hard for a lot of your listeners to understand, but this is what I do professionally. And I was just interested because your guest donor and your recipient both seem to fit into a category that I feel predisposes people to be open to the idea of organ donation, and that is, okay, at the risk of being labeled a profiler, high educational status. They are Caucasian, and the question, I'm sorry to be taking a lot of time, but this issue is so important. I think it needs a lot of discussion in the public. A lot of times, I live in the South, which is a very fundamentally religious part of the country. And my question for your guest was initially going to be, was there a religious component to her decision, or is this strictly an exercise in altruism?
Thanks, caller. Virginia Postrel.
Okay. Well, before I answer that question, I would like to sort of address this general issue of thinking about deceased donors versus living donors, because they really are different. And there are a lot of misconceptions in the general public compared, as opposed to your caller in Asheville. By the way, I was born in Asheville. A lot of people think that the reason we have an organ shortage is because not enough people sign organ donor cards. And, while I certainly would encourage people to sign organ donor cards, to let their families know that in the event of a traumatic accident, they would like to be an organ donor, if it's not enough to die. I mean, to put it crassly, you have to die in the perfect circumstances. You have to be healthy, and you have to essentially have a brain trauma that leaves you brain dead, but leaves your organs intact. Which means that when it comes to kidneys, which there are 68,000 plus people in America waiting for kidneys, even if every single potential donor, deceased donor, the family agreed to donate the organs, it would barely dent the list. In order to deal with the kidney issue, we really need to encourage living donors. And the living donors, I think, first of all, there are many fewer problems with slippery slopes, distrust of the system, etc., because you are deciding for yourself. And a lot of people do altruistic or humanitarian things that are risky, that our society depends on. I mean, think about firefighters, think about emergency room nurses who are exposed to all kinds of potentially dangerous situations. There are all kinds of things. And those people are compensated, and yet we also admire their other motives, that people don't just do things for financial motives or humanitarian motives. We all sort of exist in a mixed situation. And I think particularly with living donors who are critical to providing for the need for kidneys, and you can donate a kidney and live perfectly happily, look at me. That is a big issue.
Let's go to Chicago, Illinois. You're on the air. Hello, Chicago.
Transplant in. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is Mike. I live in Chicago. I had a transplant at the University of Chicago in 2003. And last year I participated in the transplant games in Louisville. And I would like to just know if either of you are aware of that, and I'd like to promote it and congratulate you on the recipient and the donor.
Now, where did you get yours?
At the University of Chicago from Dr. Garfinkel and Dr. Harlan. I had a living donor who was actually my daughter, and we had some, discussions about that too.
Was that tough for the two of you, and how old was your daughter?
My daughter was 26, and she's fine. She's a high school teacher now, and we both coach athletics. We coach for free. We're volunteers. And I'm thinking about putting a proposal together to go into dialysis clinics and promote transplants.
Thanks. Sally Sattel.